Hey, what is up, YouTube? What is up, YouTube? Thank y'all for coming in to watch me. I appreciate y'all. But we got Vivek leave Charlamagne stunned when he hears this about slavery, man. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Come on.
Now, don't be the person who was the slaveholder back then. Be John Adams. That's what we should call ourselves to be. The person who bucks the trend of their time to say, I'm going to speak on my own conviction and do what's different than being the product of my own time. Because anybody can parrot what the slogan is of their day. But the hard thing to do is to say the pack is running this way and I'm going this way instead anyway because it's grounded on my conviction.
People like John
That's
Adams,
what we need.
People like John Adams are the reason you can point at it and say it was wrong, though, because John Adams knew it was wrong.
Well, a lot of people are going to be doing things today that are different than the way that each of us is going to be living our lives and say the same thing in 250 years from now. Somebody else is going to be having the same conversation.
Thought it was wrong, clearly.
Abe Lincoln wasn't around then, man. That was still
later on.
That was still later on. And we'll just take the story down. We'll just pass this lineage down. We don't talk American history enough. Actually, it irritates me. A lot of conservatives talk about the importance of knowing history without actually just talking about history. Let's talk this through. So John Adams, you know who his son is? John Quincy Adams. He's the first non-founding father who became a president. Here's a funny fact about him. He was the first, so outside of the founding fathers, he was the first one who was elected president. He actually wasn't a great president. He was elected out after one term. People didn't love him. And so he tried to find everything else he could do. He went and tried to write some books, and he went and tried to start some nonprofits, and none of that spoke to him. He's the only president, John Adams' son, who went back to Congress after being a president. So he's elected to multiple terms of Congress. And you know what he went back to Congress with? Was one thing he regretted not doing as a president, was abolishing slavery. This is long before Abraham Lincoln comes along, okay? So he wanted to abolish slavery. His father was an abolitionist. He didn't accomplish much during his tenure as president. He was a good Secretary of State, but he was not a very good president. Think about the humility to say, I'm not even going to go to the Senate. I'm going to go become a congressman and get reelected multiple times with the mission of abolishing slavery. Now, here's what happens. There was a rule that Congress passes. It's called the gag rule, which stopped people from using the word slavery. Like they literally couldn't use the word slavery because they didn't want people to utter the word because it made them uncomfortable. So this guy's already been the U.S. president. Okay, so he has nothing to lose. He's just a congressman now. He says, I'm going to say the word. I'm going to say it, slavery. Slavery, slavery, slavery. There. Congress has set the rule that you can't say the word slavery. Well, I'm going to say it. So they censure him and have, just like they have today for George Santos or whatever, they'll have the equivalent of kicking him out of Congress. So they have his trial in Congress. And he uses his own personal trial, because this guy's got nothing to lose. They use his own personal trial for saying the word slavery when you're not allowed to say the word slavery to make the case for abolition from the stand of his own trial to being kicked out of Congress. At the end of that, they get rid of the gag rule. So you're allowed to say slavery, which opens up the debates that you're then allowed to have. So a year later, about a year or so later, he's given a speech on the Congress floor. I mean, it's amazing. This guy with this humility. He's given a speech on the Congress floor. He has a stroke in the middle of his speech. He dies right there. He doesn't die quite yet. They take him up to the upstairs room, keep him alive for another couple days. And eventually he dies up in that anteroom outside in the same Congress where he then devoted that later stage of his career. And they took volunteers for who's going to be the person who carries out his funeral rites and carries him out. And the guy who raises his hand and does it was a first-term congressman nobody had heard of, hadn't said a word, by the name of Abraham Lincoln.
Okay.
And so these are the stories of our history, man. We don't tell these stories anymore.
And
we celebrate. We put back our founding fathers, and we talk about how these people are slave owners, and we're going to dismiss the ideals they set into motion, without recognizing that, like us today, these are imperfect human beings that still strived and to be the best that they possibly could have, just as we do today. And so it bothers me deeply for us to just lazily reject that, as opposed to saying we acknowledge those imperfections, but we're founded on the pursuit of a more perfect union.
Absolutely, but the reason
the pursuit of liberty, equality, and justice for all.
The reason you can't just dismiss it and say, okay,
I'm not dismissing it, though. Do I sound like I'm dismissing it, Charlamagne?
Yes, but the reason
I disagree with you, man. And I think
the reason
that
you can't say
if you're going to
Thomas
put me in the
Jefferson-
category of the conversation we had and saying that I just dismissed it out of hand, I think that's unfair. I just think that's unfair.
I
I don't think
that.
I dismiss it,
But-
but I acknowledge the totality of what a human being is, which is an imperfect and flawed human being who we can still
fine with that.
celebrate.
I'm fine with that.
Like what Drake say, like Charlamagne, I see the lights in the darkest patches. Bro, stay away from politics and go back to bleaching your skin, my boy. Stay away from politics, bro. We don't want to hear nothing out of politics coming from you. Go smell women's chairs after they got up, bro. Just go do that. Go deal with your that case that you got. Go deal with that and stop coming to politics, bro. Come on.
But you can't.
That's where you have to be.
But you can't tell people just to ignore the fact that Thomas Jefferson.
I'm
was a
not
slave owner.
telling people to ignore it, though. And this is what I think we I'm in this to unite the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're going to take this seriously, every one of us has to acknowledge the full nuances of our history in every direction. To say that we're not going to listen to Thomas Jefferson or that our founding was illegitimate because they were deeply imperfect and flawed is every bit as bad as somebody who's going to say that I'm going to entirely dismiss the fact that they were slave owners. I think that both of those are mistakes that could lead to the failure of our country as we know it. I think our country will cease to exist if either side of our debate is, on one hand, willing to say, oh, slavery was some made-up myth, and actually, I don't know, it was in the interest of, people could say such things, it was the interest of black people to be slaves, whatever.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Well, I think that if we have a different side that says our founding fathers who wrote a Declaration of Independence founded on the pursuit of a more perfect union, right? The pursuit of liberty, equality, and justice for all. Not claiming we're perfect, but that we're a nation founded on freedom for all who aspire to have it, and that we're imperfect. But we eventually got there 250 years into as darn close as we've ever been. To reject that and say that we can't celebrate that founding because they made a mistake of being slave owners. I think that that is every bit as bad for the future of our country versus acknowledging that we are still pursuing that more perfect union.
What I would say is what you talked about with Thomas Jefferson when he took the razor and he took out some of the philosophies that he agreed with. We should take some of those things that we agree with, but then everybody should come to the table because all was not at the table when those people wrote those documents.
We got that.
We have too much of a diverse country now.
We understand that.
Okay.
But my point is not rejecting that or taking a hammer to it. It's more of a different response. It's like, we got it. Like, total. Like, at a certain point, we've got to say, we've got it.
We don't, though.
No, but
we can, but we don't.
We got it, and now it's time for 360-degree mercy, clemency, forgiveness across the board, and that we're moving forward as one nation under God. And I think that...
Right, man. Vivek is absolutely right. We need to stop this racism talk, man. Let's build a country. Let's build us individually. Let's build a community. We shouldn't be having homeless people on the streets. We shouldn't be having people who are unemployed, jobless. We should be increasing jobs, increasing people who want to be entrepreneurs, have a way for themselves, make a way for themselves, start a family at a young age. We should be doing that instead of talking about racism every day. We get tired of it, man. If you want to see racism end, make sure you subscribe to the channel because I come on and talk about all this stuff. I'll go over videos, I'll go over what people say, and we talk about it. Thank y'all for watching. Peace.